Hi, Dr. J. This is Jeanette doing another video. I think I'll be doing these videos. Like I said, it's a break from having to write since I'm already consistently writing. So I wanted to go over the main assignment for class today. And so reading the assignments. It says to consider an application of the research and theory focusing on attitude change and persuasion. I was reading and looking at reasoned action theory and seeing the importance of this theory by adding background variables like gender and age, socioeconomic status. And so this, by looking at this specific type of therapy, in relation to attitude change and persuasion, I think is an interesting way to analyze persuasion and attitude change by adding certain variables. Because certainly, I think I'm super big on culture, has a lot to do with certain attitudes and behaviors that one has. And also with the ability to want to persuade someone in either direction. I think adding the variable of culture is something that would significantly impact being able to persuade a certain group. And so by looking at the article from Petty and Casiopo, it says describe 2 or 3 different ways that attitudes are measured. So attitudes are measured in both a direct and indirect way. And so there are different scales. From my memory, the direct scales have like a Likert scale and the Thurstone scale. And those are used in the direct way of how attitudes are measured. It also says briefly propose how you might apply the theory of planned behavior, theory of reason, action to an area of interest to you. So an area of interest to me is skip generational parenting. And so if I think about the theory of planned behavior while also incorporating attitudes and behavior, but by looking at it from a reason action theory, and so implementing certain variables in here like age and gender, it makes me think about how effectively I can apply that theory in skip generational parenting. And so once again, briefly, what that is when you have like a grandparent that's taking care of a teenager. I'll just use that example because grandparent take care of, a toddler or young child, but I'm going to say adolescent for this specific discussion because that is where there's a lot of issues in communication in adolescence, also with just their parents, but in this case being a skip generational parent, so being the grandparent, trying to communicate with an adolescent is found to be a lot more difficult, typically because of the misunderstandings that occur, and also because there is a wide range in an age gap, right? And growing up culturally also was something to take into consideration, but just growing up in a different time and having certain expectations of how things are supposed to be. For example, with the grandparents' expectations of what they would want their adolescent to do. Perfect example, something simple like chores, you know. It gives me, it makes me think back. So if I grew up with my grandparents, my grandma never let me sleep in. I had to wake up early, even on a Saturday, because for her, staying in bed signified being lazy. And so I had to get up and do chores. And so thinking about that could cause some discord. For example, if my grandma was, or my mom, who shares the same beliefs as my grandma did, would be raising my child, who loves to sleep in and doesn't want to do any chores, how that would create a conflict of communication, because the expectation would be that he would get up early and do what he had to do, and that it would cause a problem because my son wouldn't want to get up early and do anything because he feels like he has the right to sleep in. And so thinking of that in that context makes me want to further think about how, planned behavior, or a theory of reasoned action, would contribute to my area of interest in the skip generational parenting as well. And I think that's it for the main assignment. Stay tuned for the applied assignment. Thank you.